Today we talk with the new Senior Vice President for the AOPA Air Safety Institute, Mike Ginter. AOPA keeps flying safe, accessible, and fun by protecting your freedom to fly. We are the most trusted one-stop resource for all things related to general aviation. Become an AOPA pilot today. Mike, congratulations on the new role, but you're not new to AOPA.
I've been working in our government affairs department for almost 7 years in DC. AOPA's got a staff of about 10 or 11 down in DC, and that was where I did the Vice President of Airports and State Advocacy and helping members with airport issues and fighting the bad bills in state houses. And so it was quite an exciting time down there.
Nice. Tell us about your GA background. What's your GA story?
My GA story. It started when I was probably 9 years old. I accompanied my mother to a doctor's appointment. I was planted in the doctor's waiting room, outer office, and found a flying magazine, and I started looking at the cool pictures. And by the time we were ready to leave, I asked the receptionist if I could take it. She said, sure. And a few weeks later, I had consumed it cover to cover and started bugging my mother, hey, when are we going back to the doctor's office to get another magazine? So I probably did that twice or 3 times, but that set the hook. And by the time I was 14, I was in the Civil Air Patrol, and by the time I was 15, I think I'd taken 1 or 2 lessons. We would know them as discovery flights now. And when I was 17, I started in earnest, and I got my license 3 days after my 18th birthday.
What were you flying?
Grumman Cheetahs.
Nice.
And the first financial lesson I learned was my instructor suggested I do my last couple hours of check ride prep in the Tiger. And I said, why? It's more expensive. He said, because you won't have to do the checkout for insurance purposes if you're already checked out. So that's a great idea. So Grumman Cheetahs and Tigers, and then I stayed current in GA ever since then, really.
Tell us a little bit about the aircraft that you've owned.
So the first airplane I owned, and I was one of those kids and then young adults that had a dream of owning an airplane someday. I just didn't know when. So I bought a T6 Texan, SNJ5 for the purists, a 1943 SNJ, and I bought that in 2005 and flew it for 12 years and put about 1,200 hours on it. And it was a life-changing experience. Yeah. I got deeply involved in the Type Club, North American Trainer Association. I got deeply involved in flying air shows and big formation flights.
Yeah, including Air Venture, right?
Including Air Venture and Sun and Fun and a bunch of stuff regionally. So it was a life-changing experience for a person who aspires to be in GA.
And what aircraft do you currently own?
So in 2021, I bought this beautiful Bonanza from our very own former Senior Vice President of Media, Tom Haynes.
Right.
And I fly this extensively now. It's a beautiful A36 Bonanza. And my wife, Donna, is in the middle of flight training now for her private license. And she's passed her written, and she's got about 22, 23 hours of dual. So a few months ago, we decided to buy a used Cessna 172. It's a 1968K model.
Nice. And
she's got maybe 5 hours of dual in that, and I would expect she'll solo soon, but she'll be chasing her license quickly in that airplane.
That's great. So you've got a terrific primary trainer, I mean, the most produced aircraft of all time. How do you use this A36?
It's business and pleasure mixed, and maybe 50-50. Anytime in my job as the Vice President of Airports and State Advocacy that I could go and meet members where they were at an airport on an airport issue, or go to a conference that was at an airport or an event, this is the preferred way to arrive. Obviously, if it wasn't cost prohibitive. So I flew this as often as I could to go to where the members were. And then my wife and I fly extensively for pleasure as well. She and I fly, we went to the Bahamas the first year we owned it. I bought the AOPA Bahamas guide, and it was perfect. From a dead start, it was a perfect guidebook. We've been up and down the East Coast, over to Oshkosh every year for the last 4 years now in this. So it's really a fun airplane.
So you have a long background in naval aviation. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yes. So I got my license at 18. I went right to Embry-Riddle to get a degree after high school. Enrolled in all the flying courses. I believe it's called aeronautical science. I went to Daytona Beach campus. And about a year and a half in, I applied to the Navy, was accepted for a pilot spot, so I promptly got out of the air science and got into an engineering curriculum. And when I got my degree, I went right into the Navy. I had to do 90 days of officer candidate school, and then right off to flight training, and I ended up getting assigned to fly the S-3 Viking, carrier-based twin-engine jet. Anti-submarine warfare was the mission. That changed over time, but I liked that so much that I stayed in for 27 years.
And you also led a demonstration team for the Viking?
Right. When I was in command of a squadron in Jacksonville, Florida, I was in command during a period called turnaround training. We were between deployments. So lots of training, lots of personnel changes, maintenance on the airplanes, upgrades. And my squadron was chosen to be the demo squadron for that year to represent the S-3 at regional air shows, East Coast air shows. And it wasn't as sexy as the Blues or the Thunderbirds, but it was really fun. We had a 2-ship demo, a formation demo of all the capabilities of the Lockheed S-3 Viking, and it was just a great time. I think I did 6 air shows that year, but it was fun.
That sounds
It was great.
exciting. How did your military experience influence your thinking about aviation safety?
I would say significantly. It became part of who I was as a aviation thinker. My aeronautical decision making was formed there. There's a culture of safety in the military, and it's any branch, doesn't matter, and it's any specialty in any branch. But the culture of safety enables mission success. If you can't bring home the people, the planes, the tanks, the ships, then you can't really accomplish your mission the next day. So that is a foundational part of our training and culture in the military. And I'll give you an example. If in the S-3 Viking, if you didn't fly for 30 days for whatever reason, you had to complete a back in the saddle open book quiz and a simulator flight just to get the muscle memory back, and that's just 30 days. And if you were out of the cockpit for more than 60 days, you had to do a closed book test after the open book test, a simulator ride with an instructor, and then an instructor pilot would go with you for what they call a back in the saddle hop. So the rigor was there to really drive home the proficiency is not just 3 takeoffs and landings in 90 days, it's far greater than that. I will say the demands of military flying are probably greater than the day-to-day flying you and I do now. So there was a need for that level of training. So there's not a one-to-one correlation, but there's a culture there that I hope to bring to this job.
So certainly general aviation and military aviation are 2 different things, but are there some lessons that we can still learn from military aviation on safety?
I think so, and I'm not sure there are even new lessons. It's been said many times, the value of annual recurrent training is priceless. The value of type club membership is priceless. The type club in the military was your squadron and the squadron standard operating procedures. But the value of those organizations to a pilot who has to seek it out in general aviation, it's not required. If you seek that training out and go for an annual recurrent training flight and then challenge yourself, tell the instructor that you want to do something totally different, stretch your comfort level a little bit, you will be a better pilot, and you'll ideally not be stunned when something happens that you've never experienced. If you've experienced it in the training environment, maybe your heart rate will be a little bit less high, and you'll think through the problem and handle it differently than if it was the shock of the first time and you don't know what to do.
So you were at the heart of the DC flyover that we did on May 11th. Operationally, you ran it, you did the pilot briefings, you were the air boss. How did your military background inform how we kept everybody safe during that flyover when 54 of us flew down the mall?
Right. Well, safety was the foundational principle to start this. It had to be safely done and professionally done, or the 11 government agencies wouldn't have agreed to do it. And the paperwork was mind-boggling. The fundamental tenets of this flyover, 55 general aviation pilots, a few of which were air show pilots, but not the majority, was to basically fly a simple flight, but we had to guarantee that it was safe. So we did that with spacing through timing, extensive coordination with Potomac Traffic Control, and they were very, very helpful and gracious in the planning and execution. And so it was a foundational philosophy, and the best we could have done on that flyover, and I told this to our illustrious president, the best we can do is average, because anything less than average is a failure. An accident, a mishap, a flight violation for one of our pilots would just be bad. So there was a lot of risk involved, and we mitigated the risk. And that was everything that could have gone wrong we had a plan for. And it was, thank God, it was great weather, and the pilots were eager and ready, and we briefed them several times, and just couldn't have been happier with the outcome.
The whole thing went perfectly, so I can see why you were tapped to lead the Air Safety Institute. You did an excellent job with that. Do you plan to bring back the Air Safety Institute early analysis videos?
Yes. What Richard started several years ago was a standard in general aviation accident analysis, early analysis, and I hope to continue that. I'm definitely going to bring it back. The value of those early analysis videos is immeasurable if pilots will maybe remember something similar to that in their experience, or will remember it for a future experience, and they can apply the lessons learned. And these will be initial lessons learned. You know, we have to remember these are done within days of a mishap. Mm-hmm. And there's no hard data from the NTSB on causal factor. So I hope to continue that standard of excellence, and yes, we'll be bringing those back.
Fantastic. What other plans do you have for the Air Safety Institute?
So we're going to remain data-driven for sure in our analysis of the trends. And I'm going to dive deep into that to find out over the last 5 years what worked and what hasn't worked, from a perspective of what actually helped us drive the accident record to the safest level that it is now. And that's worth mentioning, is general aviation has never been safer than it is now. This year, 2024, is shaping up to be the second safest year on record, behind 2021. So that's a trend we should love, we should be proud of that, and we should continue and strive to get better. There's always room for improvement.
Are there any sorts of accidents that you're focusing on that can help further improve the safety record?
So the most probable cause for most mishaps is loss of control. 40% of fatal mishaps are due to loss of control through various reasons. So I'm going to go, and we've done extensive content production on that topic. VMC into IMC is another area that got a lot of attention. I'm going to go back and figure out what can we do to refresh those things if it needs to be refreshed. And if it's still good content, we'll keep going down the Pareto chart for all of the causal factors. We're pretty far down the chart now, but it might be time to go back and revisit some of the more prominent causes and address things we haven't addressed.
Well, it was great to spend time with you in your first week as Senior Vice President for the Air Safety Institute, and I look forward to seeing how you help us all further improve the general aviation safety record over the next few years.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.